All right, we're here with Whiskey, Sex, BMX, a perspective of BMX in the 90s and early 2000s. This is episode 2. I'm very honored today to have a special guest, as I promised in my little intro podcast that we're going to be having people on. And today, legend of BMX, medalist in the Gravity Games, video game character, you name it. We have Mr. Mike Laird. How you doing, Mike?
Steve, what the fuck's going on?
Not too much. This is going to be our first trial on this, and we've also got a couple of esteemed guests, Mr. Paul Murray.
Hey, Steve.
And Anthony Brogdon.
What's up?
Paul, of course, is the reason I'm actually doing this podcast. He hit me up a couple weeks ago and said we need to start doing this, and this is for the BMX community. We're going to be saying some bad words and probably telling some crazy stories, so it may not be geared towards the little kids, but, my kid's going to listen to it, and he's 10, so we'll go from there. He loves hearing stories. As I said, Mike's kind of a legend in BMX, and I say that with no second thoughts whatsoever. As we were getting ready to set up this recording, a kid in the lobby of the Daniel Dares Action Sports Complex, where we're at today, overheard that Mike Laird was here and literally freaked out that Mike Laird was here because he's riding one of Mike's frames, and I thought it was like back in the early 2000s and we were at a big contest and kids were going to run over and ask for his autograph again. It was kind of reminiscent of that. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about your BMX background. Like, what got you into BMX?
Man, I just was a little kid, riding around on a bike in the neighborhood, and riding with some local guys at around the neighborhood and shit, and the local guys were a little bit older than I were, and they thought I was pretty good at bikes, so they all raced BMX, and they were like, hey man, you should race. And I was like, what's racing? And they told me, and then I ran home that day, and I said, hey, Mom and Dad, can I race BMX? And they're like, no. And so I came back to the trails and told the guys, like, I think a couple days later, and they're like, what? Of course, they didn't understand it. I think they were like, I was 10 at the time, and they were probably in the 15, 14-ish zone. And I was like, can you guys come to my house? I don't think, obviously I didn't know what I was talking about. And they were like, yeah, we'll come to your house. So I took the kids back to my house, and they talked to my parents. And that very next weekend, I went to my first BMX race. I was 10 years old. Got third place, my first race on a Team Murray, probably, junkiest garbage bike you could possibly imagine. And I was hooked. And then I raced for 6 years until I was 16. And that's when S&M was around and started street riding. I started doing that shit and got into ramps. So that's my story.
What was the first thing that got you from racing to, like, riding ramps? Like, more going toward that?
Well, the ramps didn't
freestyle.
come until I was in 20s. Like I said, S&M videos, like Feel My Leg, Muscles, I'm a Racer was out and stuff like that, and street riding was getting popular. And I started racing, and I was decent, but I went to Arizona when I was 16 and raced some ABA races, and they were way more religious at racing than I was, and I didn't beat a single person out there. They stomped me to the ground. And, teenage years, and I was like, BMX was in my blood, but racing wasn't.
Right.
And I just wasn't into it anymore. And as soon as I started seeing real street, I was hooked on that. I tried, my very first rail was on a stainless steel rail, which anybody knows about stainless steel on the slide. And I had GT screw-on pegs with the knurling.
Yeah.
As soon as I hit that thing with the pegs,
You still have teeth?
OTB into the road behind it, and I don't know. I was just hooked, man. I hung around a bunch of skateboarders that had small ramps and stuff, so I just rode that stuff. It wasn't until Hampton, which was in my 20s, is when I started riding ramp.
Really?
You lived there in Virginia all the time? Our whole time?
For the most part, yeah.
Well, I remember the first time you came to Greenville, we had the first version of the JC Park, and we were out riding, and you showed up, and we rode for a little bit together, and I went over to Mira's apartment, and I was like, yeah, this guy from Virginia's down. This guy's good. I said, his name's Mike Laird. Mira looked at me and goes, yeah, I heard about that dude. He goes big. That's the first thing he ever said about you. Like, you were just, known for going big right off the bat, and that was the first time you'd ever come to town. and then you started coming down more and more. And my favorite time you came down, though, was it was just you and I at the park. You literally rolled up. We rode for 2 minutes. You did like a 7-foot air out of the quarter pipe and hung sprocket.
Okay, let's finish the story. You're leaving out the beginning of the story. Steve talks to me, wants me to come down to Greenville. And I'm like, okay, we'll come down. We always came down like once a month or so, and these guys came up every 4 months or something. But it was fine. So anyways, I rolled down to Greenville, get there early in the morning. Steve's like, hey, you want to help me move some furniture with my girlfriend? And I'm like, all right, I didn't sign up to fucking do any damn labor. So I was like, I'll help you out. We'll go there, and was it third story or second story apartment?
Third story apartment complex.
Third story fucking apartments. And we're huffing all this furniture up and down for 2 hours. I was fucking pissed. He's like, I'll buy you lunch. So you go to your damn steak and shake place. What the hell? Quincy's. Quincy's. You took me to Quincy's.
Oh, that was a steakhouse, yeah.
Oh, damn, you got
cheap
good treatment, didn't you?
cheap ass.
Hey, for Greenville, that was fine dining, all
Cheap
right?
ass steakhouse,
What
Steve.
year was this?
This is 94. 95. It had been 95 because Mira was already living
Yeah.
there. So it was probably fall of 95, somewhere in there.
So yeah, after all morning laboring, lifting that I had no clue about, that I got suckered into, we go out to the skate park, and I'm agitated, and I'm hauling ass towards the 8-foot quarter pipe, and of course I missed my pump because I'm not used to riding 8-foot quarter pipe, and I hung sprocket, folded that thing 90 degrees, broke my chain, full on disaster.
Was this first air?
First air. The very first air. Boom! I mean, I didn't flip over the bar. I mean, it was like a disaster. The most perfect disaster.
Oh, yeah.
Back then, the sprockets were huge.
Yeah, we had a 44.
Yeah.
Oh, you ran a 45.
Yeah, I rode 45. Rolled down the thing with my chain dragging behind me. I probably cussed heavily.
Really?
Probably? No, there's no probability about that. It happened.
Grabbed my shit, threw it in the back of my Ford Ranger, and I peaced out. Drove
Just drove
straight home.
See, what you don't know is he's like, listen, I'm going to call my friend Mike down to come ride. I'll give you help us move.
He had a truck.
He got a truck. He can help.
Exactly.
He just took the bike and just hucked it right in the back of the truck.
Swindled. I got swindled right there.
Well, it wasn't long after that when you actually moved down to Greenville. And that was kind of the beginning of the scene. You were basically the first guy to make the move after Dave. And that was about time, too, when you picked up your first big sponsor, which was
Eastern? Oh, yeah, Eastern. Yeah, Eastern was pretty big in North Carolina, in Greenville area.
Well, at the time, it was a small frame company, literally. I mean, that was all it
yeah.
was. There was nothing else
Yeah,
parts-wise or anything. And you were the first team rider, and then they asked me to be a part of it. And so we were kind of like the first two guys on the team.
Love and hate. You remember that?
Love and hate. We had our own hate. Yep. The lover and the hater. But it was kind of funny.
Yeah, I was the lover.
Oh, shit. But that was the beginnings of Eastern's Bikes. The first official sponsored rider for Eastern Bikes was Mike
What was
Laird.
that, 97?
That was 96 when the
96?
first
Okay.
frame, the prototype came out.
Okay.
That's when you did the prototype frame. Because I was still riding the menstrual cycle, which was the
Forgot
S&M.
about that.
Yeah. And that was when Eastern first started up. So, I mean, as far as sponsors go, who do you think's been your best sponsor over the years? As far as the way they treated you and just helped you out with whatever you needed.
Ooh, that's a good question. Man.
Seems like we hit the hard hitting stuff there.
Honestly, Vans shoes.
Really?
Vans was the co-sponsor of Nerve. And so my Nerve cycle lasted 2 years. And then I got free shoes through them. And I never got paid by Vans. But after Nerve was done, they paid for all my travel for the rest of my professional career.
Wow.
And so,
And that's the hardest part about doing anything is going there and getting places.
Anywhere I asked, Batters got me there and got free shoes, obviously, and no questions asked. I had hotel rooms at every event I went to.
Nice.
So Vans, by far, treated me the best.
That's awesome. Actually, the way I buy shoes or anything like that, I've always been politically motivated through BMX, where I buy companies that support BMXers.
I'm very loyal.
Yeah, and that it's not like I was ever getting a penny from them or they've ever done a thing for me, but just because of the fact that the way they treated my friends and people I know and supported it, I would buy from them.
Yeah, before I got sponsored, I bought S&Ms and Standards. Just American made, just write our own type stuff. It wasn't until I started writing for companies that I was writing stuff made overseas.
Well, as far as that goes, now that you make your own bikes, do you ever have contact with guys like Chris Muller or Rick Molinterno, like that have been in the industry and building frames for years? Have you talked with those guys in the past couple of years since you've gotten heavy into it?
Not really, man. As you know me, I just do my own thing.
Right.
I participate in BMX, but I'd never really participate in the sense of industry-wise. Like I'm not a business guy. I just do my own thing. I see it through my own lens, and I just do the shit the way I want to do it, and I don't really...
Yeah, but that's been you since forever. Just before you were even making frames, you did things your way. It was the way Mike Laird did it, and that was it. It was like... And you had influence, of course, but everybody knew, like, if Mike was going to do something, Mike was going to do it. If he's going to do a 10-foot air over this hip, then nobody's going to tell him he couldn't do it, so...
Yeah, I take the same philosophy with frame building. I mean, if another frame builder, a traditional bicycle frame builder would come see my setup or how I do things, they probably think I do things a little overkill or not efficient enough, but I don't care. I do it the way I feel I build them the way I feel is the best, and it is what it is.
And with that, too, just kind of like BMX, do you see progression, like the progression in your welding and your work over the past couple of years?
Yeah.
I mean, the way I follow on Instagram, you're constantly looking for the newest in technology.
It's just like riding, man. We don't ride to be the same as we were yesterday. We always, to get us psyched, is to do something new or cleaner. It's the same thing with welding. I just try to do better than I did the day before.
When it comes to your frames, did you, I know it's been a few years, but did you think it would take off and be as successful and stuff as it actually has been?
I hoped, but I also know the market's really saturated right now.
Right.
A lot of the riders seem to be supporting themselves with coming out with all these brands, so I knew I was jumping into a sea of sheep, you know what I mean? And so I was jumping in. The reason why I started building my frames is I was on my last Miracle for 4 years, the same frame and fork. And I knew that it was time to get on something new. So I thumbed through it like a dance comp, and I started looking through other stuff to see what I would purchase. It was the first time in years I could actually pick out my own bike that I really wanted. And where some of the geometry I liked, but I didn't like the brand or, I'm not going to get into the logistics of that, but I just didn't see anything at the level of riding I was at, and then getting something that I didn't believe in or want to support. So I started thinking, I'm like, man, there's actually kind of a void of a high-end market for frames. You can get custom frames from S&M and Standard and FBM, but to me, it missed that mark a little bit on the high end. I'm not trying to talk shit, but it's just the way I felt. And so I was like, man, I think I could do this, but I can't just bring in a frame. I have to offer a carrot, if you will. And that's where the custom bridge came in. I'm like, and if you want to stand out in the sea of, sheep, you gotta do something different,
Yeah, they can pretty much pick out any color they want as well.
Yeah, I didn't realize the importance of that until I was a year or 6 months into building frames. Mm-hmm. Like, I was like, I want to offer 2 colors a month. I want to keep to a minimum off of custom colors where I picked, so I can not go through the headache of having to offer all these colors. And then, like I said, I'm not a business guy. I'm just a BMXer that knows how to weld, that's just starting a business, So BMX is my core, my core knowledge, if you will. And so I'm learning